Hello, my friend. Here is Hannah Arendt on existential courage. And again, we will go in a completely new direction, as you will see. You will remember that Hannah Arendt was taught philosophy, studied philosophy with both Karl Jaspers and Martin Heidegger in the 1920s in Germany, and that her thought is therefore deeply influenced by and saturated with concepts about Dasein, being in a world with forces that are always part of your existence and influence you, and thrownness, a realization that what happens to you initially is given, and you need to find your own authentic selfhood to do something original, something new with it. But Hannah Arendt fled from Germany because she was Jewish, and she became a refugee in the USA. And so her whole theory is influenced by that life experience. And she came to believe that this existential focus on authentic selfhood is actually about favoring the lonely individual, the solitary person who stands away from the world. And while there is value in that, it is also dangerous. For Arendt, looking inward to find authenticity, as Heidegger did, is a luxury. It is not the central way of being in the world, for it leads to political passivity. In her books, The Human Condition and Between Past and Future, she takes a very different perspective on the isolated philosophers' considerations of what human existence is about. And she drags humanity into the chaotic public square. Existential courage for Hannah Arendt is political courage. It is the courage to step outside of your private, protected life into the unpredictable world, the scary, challenging, frightening world of the public realm. And that tension between the public and the private is one that each of us has to come to terms with. For Arendt, it is vital and crucial that we dare to step outside of this search for personal authenticity. She revives the distinction between the private sphere of the household, the oikos, and the public sphere of political action, the polis. So, while in the private realm we pursue our survival and we labor at our job and we fulfill what we need to fulfill in order to biologically survive and meet our needs, this ultimately is about finding a predictable, secure, comfortable and hidden lifestyle. The public realm demands something quite different. It is the space in which we appear to others and where we step outside of hiding amongst friends and family, where we are judged for our speech and our actions. So entering the public realm requires immense existential courage. And I can agree with that quite clearly, because the temptation to just write privately and express my own thoughts and read my favorite authors and stay within the people who approve of me and who protect me is always great. It's hugely attractive to be in that safe realm, but to keep challenging yourself, to speak up, to try and figure out how to live a better life, what to contribute to society, and how to be part of the conversation and the dialogue that demand that you think through the problems of this world, that does require you to strengthen yourself and to make those muscles where you don't care to be criticized or disagreed with or even disapproved of, and sometimes ridiculed, my friend. It is very important to let one's voice be heard and to hear your own voice and to strip away the armor of your safety. But that doesn't mean that private life is wrong. It is important to have that safety from which to go on this adventure where you need your courage. And you know already that Hannah Arendt spoke about new beginnings, that natality was as important as mortality. Yes, we will die, but we are also first born and we are reborn each day. Each day we can make a new beginning. I speak about this so forcefully in my new book, Beginning to Live, The Art of Existential Freedom. And I talk about what Arendt says, that these constant new beginnings are to strike out on this journey, which is always uncertain, insecure, and where you will encounter difficulties, difficult human beings and problems that you can no longer avoid and that you have to start finding solutions to. So you take a risk and you build your courage. You make a contribution and it's either accepted or rejected or transformed, and you build your courage, and everything is unpredictable. How does Arendt say that we should deal with it? Well, by two things: forgiveness and promise. So Arendt talks about the importance of finding ways to forgive yourself, because we cannot undo what we have done, and to also forgive others, because they cannot undo what they have done, as long as they are prepared to engage in dialogue and think about what has happened or what has been done. Forgiveness is always a good thing, and promising is also a good thing. But it requires courage. Forgiveness requires an act of fierce courage, because when you let go of your desire for vengeance or resentment, my friend, you are releasing other people and you're giving up that power, but you are also opening into the future, and you are making your own future whole again, instead of dragging the past along with you as a very big burden on your back. So Let go of the mistakes you and other parties have made and begin anew. Have the courage to begin anew with forgiveness and determination to get things more right the next time. You don't forget, you learn, and you aim to do better next time. And this leads to the courage to promise. This new bravery casts an anchor into the future. It says, I can build something new that's going to be more worthwhile than what I have let go of. And I trust in that, and I make a promise to that. I commit to that. And finally, the other important thing for Arendt is to not allow yourself to be taken over by the banality of evil. Remember her famous expression that she came up with in relation to Nazi bureaucrat Adolf Eichmann. She went to his trial in Jerusalem and wrote about it. She expected to see a monster, a demonic villain, because he had been the architect of so much death in the Third Reich. But what she saw was a very terrifyingly ordinary person who she thought had the defining trait of thoughtlessness. And this is really important. She came to believe that Eichmann and the other people who were Nazis had surrendered their capacity to think clearly and to challenge themselves. They were thinking in a complacent, easy, trivial way about real problems. They were not recognizing the real problems and difficulties they were going to create. Eichmann spoke in cliches. He followed rules meticulously and was proud of it. He blocked out the pain and suffering that he caused. He never thought about consequences of his actions. This is what the banality of evil is. It is that we become evil when we allow ourselves to sink into banality and triviality and repetition of the same things all over again. If we don't have the courage of thoughtfulness and of dialogue with others, this is what happens, she believed. And I'm pretty sure this applied to Heidegger too, because she had been Heidegger's lover, and she always tried to be fair to him, but nevertheless she preferred Jaspers in many ways because he was a very disciplined and loyal person, and he was also a very moral and ethical person who stood against Nazism. Even though he could have gotten away with hiding, he did the hard choices and stuck with his Jewish wife. So Arendt really does comment very negatively on anybody who becomes a passive cog in the machine and who allows totalitarian thinking to take over for them, to lose their conscience, to lose their courage to question themselves, to question life, to question other people, to be in conversation about these difficult considerations of how we should live our lives and how we should be in the public, how we should be in politics. We need to remain civically alive as well as personally alive. We need to remain free to be true to our feelings and to our true reality, and to be critical in our consideration of what is right and what is wrong. For this, Arendt believed we have to remain radically exposed to the public square, because that is where we are stimulated to question things and to find constant new beginnings, and to keep exercising our capacity for learning. That is what requires existential courage, and also precisely what will strengthen your existential courage and lead you to it over and over again, my friend. Much to learn from Hannah Arendt. Read her.